Okay. Welcome back, everyone. We're all set, and I believe the recording is started. Allison, you may resume your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Venozzi, before the lunch break, we were talking about the 1763 layout. Have you done any work to identify the town way that's referenced in the 1763 layout?
Yes, I have.
And what have you done to do that?
As I had mentioned earlier, I had looked at the town colonial records to see if there were any town layouts that matched up, like if I could find a candidate way that would line up in that area based on its description. And in those town records, I did not find a written layout. I looked at the county records in the same way, where in the same manner I was able to identify the county layout. And then I had at one point felt that I had found a town layout, 1734, I think was the year of that town layout that I had felt had come in from the east on what I call Four Rod Road on my chalk, but ultimately that was determined with some. There was another class of records that I then reviewed, which were towns, the selectmen's assignment to highway surveyors, and in reviewing those documents in conjunction with the 1734 layout, I had found that the 1734 layout was much more likely to be Monument Street, and but I had found in those records references to a town layout in the vicinity of Estabrook Road.
So after excluding that 1734 layout, did you do any other work to identify the town way referenced in the 1763 layout?
Yes, that was when I became aware. I was given these selectmen's assignment of to the highway surveyors, and those documents carry descriptions that identified the way. In the descriptions in those documents, they identify a town layout on Estabrook Road.
I'm going to turn to a document that's been marked for identification as contested exhibits L and its subparts. It's L1 through 59. So if you could turn to your contested exhibit binder, Mr. Venozzi, I'm going to ask you some questions about that. So it's at the back of the binder, L1 through 59.
Your Honor, can we just have a minute so we can find the right binder?
Yeah, I'm looking myself.
I have K through. You have L? No, I have K. Oh, no, this is something. Is there any town contested?
Yeah.
Actually, if you want to hold on for 1 second, because I want to use the electronic.
It's K.
exhibits for this.
K59.
I'm sorry, it's
K1 through.
We have it marked as L59 with the sub numbers 1 through 59. So L 1 through 59.
We do not have L.
We do not, we have it as K.
What is that?
Oh, wait a minute.
Is that an updated index you're looking at? Because over the course of a few days, we've
One, like the
added
L
one.
tab was not included,
Oh.
so this is in fact L 1 through 59. So we're good.
We have the document. We were just missing the tab.
Thank you. Yeah, we're good. Well, let's wait till she offers them and see what he says.
And Your Honor, you have this L 1 through 59 in your exhibit binder?
Actually, I'm having a problem locating it.
Locating the entire binder?
No, this is a binder that actually fell off a shelf.
Oh, no.
So it's here, but I don't know where it is. So we will get it put back together. And I'm waiting for the electronic version to download. So why don't you go ahead with your question?
Okay, I will note for the record that the hard copy that we provided with the court, which it sounds like you have to find, has an index at the front with transcriptions of these records, which unfortunately was inadvertently excluded from the electronic version.
Okay.
And we're gonna send that along to you electronically. We just discovered that, but
Yeah, Your Honor, and we'd also note for the defense team, we received that by email at 10:45 last night. We don't have a hard copy yet, and we haven't had an opportunity to review it and compare it with the records themselves. So we're going to object for the time being. We're probably going to object to the exhibits altogether, but we certainly object to the transcription until we've had a chance to review it.
Of course.
yeah, so to be clear, Your Honor, this transcription that we're referring to is for these documents, 1 through subparts L 1 through 59, which the defendants have had, for over a year and a half now, but they have the documents underlying this index. We just thought it would be much easier for the court to follow along with these excerpts transcribed, as we've done for many other documents in this case. It just somehow got left out of the electronic version in the
And the transcript,
kerfuffle.
the transcript was sent to me when?
So the transcriptions came in your hard copy binder, but I just realized last night what were not sent to you electronically. So we can send those now electronically, especially if you're having trouble finding the hard copy.
I
May I
am.
be heard, Your Honor? Lisa Goodhart.
Yeah.
The binders of the town's exhibits that were given to us
Mhm.
and which we were told were the same as what was delivered to you did not include any transcriptions. So it sounds like you received transcriptions that we did not.
So you were provided the electronic version. That's why we were saying the electronic version inadvertently did not include these transcriptions. So, we do apologize for that oversight. And as soon as we realized it, we provided the index with the transcriptions last night.
Hence our objection.
Okay. Well, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage since through no fault of any of the parties, because I can't look at the binder because I don't know what's what. I tried to put it back together, but I couldn't figure out what was what.
So shall we continue, Your Honor? And
Continue with what you've got and just try your best to identify it so that, I probably have it here. Just can't tell if it's part of Exhibit L, contested Exhibit L. So I have a lot of the stuff that fell out of this binder is printed pages from a book, nothing that would require a transcription.
oh, I think you might be looking at the road commissioner's reports rather than the selectmen assignments to the surveyors. The selectmen assignments to the surveyors are, handwritten
Yeah,
copies of a book. They're harder to read. The road commissioners are typed, so you may be referring to those.
I don't have anything that looks like it would have been a 59 or 60 page handwritten.
So no, it's several separate documents. 59 of them covering 59 different years that we had marked as L1 through 59. So it's not continuous pages. I can give you the Bates numbers, Your Honor.
That would be, oh yeah, give me the base numbers.
So, because those, I believe, are not quite continuous, but it's Concord. There are a few sets here. Concord, 5848 to 50,
584.
8 to 50 to
Yeah.
5850. Concord, 5853 to 5857.
Yeah,
Concord, 5872. Concord, 5876 to 5878. Concord, 5918 to 5933.
They don't match ours.
And Concord, 8234 to 8355. I believe that covers them. Like I said,
If I may, Your Honor, the Bates numbers in our index do not match those numbers.
they do, but those Bates numbers that I just gave to the judge those are not in chronological order. I think those are just what in Bates number order. And so in the binder, they're in chronological order, but those are all the Bates numbers that correspond with them.
I can't find anything that starts with a 5. All of the ones in my binder that I see start with 8.
Yes,
You were saying 5, 8. All of the numbers you read began with a 5, and none of the numbers that we have begin with a 5.
no, the last number I read is 8234 to 355.
We have that one, but we don't have any of.
I've got that.
Ones. The ones you read initially, Melissa, about the last.
Right, so the first set,
Speak up to the microphone.
8234 to 8355 covers all subparts one through 46. That's a lengthy chunk of documents there. And then 47 through 59 are the Bates numbers that begin in the 5000s. 5918.
Yeah, I can't even read those. They're so small. I'm sorry.
So, well, in any case, the defendant's binders have them separated out into the subpages. I'm just trying to identify for Your Honor, because his binder has fallen apart, which Bates numbers correspond to that.
All right, so I'm finding, I'm empathizing with Ms. Tillotson because some of these Bates numbers are really tiny.
Yeah, those last ones, when you get to the tab 47, those are the really tiny ones at the corner.
Right.
I'm not sure why they came out so small there.
All right, well, just identify, as you ask questions, why don't you identify the specific pages you're talking about, and I will attempt to locate them, subject to the electronic version showing up, which is telling me it's still downloading.
Okay, and we'll send along as part of the contested exhibit, the transcription with the index as well, which makes it easier to follow. All right. So, Mr. Venozzi, you have in front of you, please confirm that you have in front of you the town's contested exhibit binder with document marked for identification as Exhibit L with subparts 1 through 59.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And are you familiar with this set of documents, Mr. Benozzi?
Yes, I am.
And what do you understand these documents to be?
These documents are an annual assignment by the selectmen to the appointed highway surveyors in the town. Essentially, what appears to happen is the selectmen each year appoint.
Your Honor, I would object to his continuing his answer beyond what he understood the documents to be. In other words, he's now
I get it.
testifying to historical context.
Just testifies to what they are, Mr. Benozzi.
These are the annual assignments by the selectmen to the surveyors of highways in the town.
And did you review each of the documents that we've marked here as L through 59, L1 through 59 in the course of your work on this case?
Yes, I have.
Now I know Your Honor doesn't have the transcription in front of him, but Mr. Benozzi, do you have a transcription and index of these documents as part of those exhibits?
Yes, I do. I have. Yes, I do.
Have you also reviewed that transcription?
Yes, this transcription was not created by me, but I've reviewed each one of the transcriptions and agree that they are a transcription of the words in those excerpts, with a couple of small exceptions.
Oh, okay.
That are,
if you found any inaccuracies in the transcription, could you call those out for us?
yes, I would indicate that in the transcription.
Your Honor, I would object. Again, the court doesn't have the transcriptions. The defendants only got them last night. And I would note for the record that transcriptions are not, it is inaccurate to say that these transcriptions are transcriptions of the entire document in question. What has happened is that apparently the town has gone through and pulled out each one of these records and pulled out a particular 2 or 3 lines from that record and included it in the transcription and omitted every other part of the document. And we would object on that basis of completeness as well.
Your Honor, as with every other transcription in this case.
Hold on, Ms. Allison, Ms. Tillotson. I understand they don't need the whole document. They're pointing out the parts they find are relevant. The actual documents are available to the defendants as well, and you can put in whatever parts of them you want. The entire document will either be admitted or rejected, and the assistance of having part of it transcribed that is helpful to either side's case is welcomed by the court. So I don't have a problem with less than the entire document being transcribed. That was the case with the documents we went through this morning. So the objection is overruled.
That's correct, although, Your Honor, I would just point out for the court that with regard to the deeds and other transcriptions that the court reviewed this morning, the parties had agreed in advance as to the relevant portions of those deeds that would be included. And they've been a process in the work and negotiations for the last, several weeks. So again, I accept the court's ruling, but again, these documents have not been offered yet, but I would note that this transcription stands on a somewhat different footing than the ones the court saw earlier. And I'd also like to note, just because I failed to say this earlier, when one of us objects, unless otherwise noted, I think the defendants are essentially in agreement onto objections, but as to objections, we didn't want to keep pouncing up and repeating each other. So unless otherwise noted, it's an objection on behalf of all defendants.
I appreciate that, Ms. Tillotson. All right, so when the document is offered, each document, and I think my download is through, so I can actually look at these now. I'll look at the document, and if the basis for an objection is that not the entire document has been transcribed, I'll address that as well. Okay, so you may proceed, Ms.
Yeah, I'll move to offer these as exhibits momentarily, Your Honor. I thought while we're talking about the transcription, it would just be helpful for the court to have on the record any inaccuracies that Mr. Venozzi noted in those transcriptions.
Well,
So-
why don't we do those when, I mean, I'll let you do it any way you want.
That's
I've got 59 pages, I think.
I think it's more than 59 pages. It's the
59.
59 subparts of what's been marked for identification as document L 1 through 59 in the town's contested exhibits. Some of the copies run over one page. Some of the excerpts run over one page.
All right, so I'm looking at all of the Ls on my screen as separate PDFs. Are you gonna be
Yes.
offering them all at once or one at a time or some of them? Or what?
Based on, we'd like to offer them all at once. And Mr. Venozzi, I believe I had asked you whether you had reviewed all of these records in connection with the work that you did in this case. Is that right? 1 through 59, I mean.
That is correct. I've reviewed them all.
Okay. And your description of what these documents were, does that apply to all of the subparts, parts L1 through 59?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And so, Your Honor, I'd like to offer these to be admitted as the next exhibit,
Objection.
subparts L1 through 59.
And they are the records of the,
The annual assignments of the selectmen to the surveyors of highways.
for the year.
Point of clarification, Your Honor.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure what's being offered are the copies of the documents at the tabs, not the index of the transcription
Well,
at this time.
my understanding, the actual copies of the documents, right?
The copies of the documents I'm offering now, I'd like to separately address the transcription. We would like to offer that as an exhibit as well.
Let's take it one at a time. So we've got the records of the selectmen's assignments to the highway surveyors for the years 1754 through
1829, Your Honor.
1829. Okay, and that would be number 59. Okay. All right. The defendants object. Who's taking
I
that?
think there's a representation that they're for every year. And looking at the index, which we haven't had a chance to verify, they are not for every year.
Maybe that was my representation. They're listed, and if there's some years missing, I guess there's some years missing.
These are the years that we've identified in our offering, Your Honor. They're contained in subparts 1 through 59.
Okay.
Your Honor, we would also object on the grounds of relevance. Basically,
Wait,
these
what do you mean
documents.
Also, what grounds are you objecting on the basis of? There's relevance?
Oh, and the other one was just a clarification of both the fact that the index wasn't being offered and that they did not include every year, which would suggest to me that it would be better to have Mr. Venozzi offer or to have them offered individually or at least in clumps where we know for the consecutive years are included in the transcriptions. With respect to relevance, Your Honor, these documents that are being offered now, as the court will see, are merely lists. They're assignments to surveyors. It doesn't establish that anything was actually either done on the road. In fact, it doesn't even establish that anybody even looked at the road. It's an assignment. And we would just object on the grounds that it has little, if any, probative value to the court's ultimate determination in this case.
Well, I'm going to overrule that objection, Ms. Tillotson. I think the amount of probative value it has is to be argued by the parties, but it certainly if it mentions what we all think is this road, or if it can be testified to that it's with respect to this road, then it's got some relevance, and its amount of probative value is, subject to argument and further evidence and cross-examination, but it's relevant. As to whether it should all go in as one exhibit or 59 separate exhibits, we all see the list. You can cross-examine about the years that are missing and why they're missing. So I'm going to allow contested exhibits L1 through 59 to be admitted as an exhibit. And that would be exhibit, I don't know the number.
115?
115, okay.
Yes.
Just
So
for
you don't-
clarification.
You don't want them
Clarification.
broken up A, B, C, D. You just want them all as one.
Well, why don't you keep the numbers they have, because so it'll be exhibit 115-1
Okay,
because they're
Very good.
already labeled on the PDFs,
okay.
or even
Thank you.
the L if you want.
Your Honor, I'd also like to offer the transcription that's contained in your hard copy binder, the excerpts of the transcriptions and the index, which I think the court will find extremely useful. Mr. Venozzi has testified that he has reviewed those, confirmed their accuracy with the exception of a couple of points, which it sounds like he's going to correct. And, of course, defense counsel will have the opportunity to ask him about those excerpted transcriptions, but I do think.
Where's the transcript in the contested? I'm just looking at the electronic version right now. So
Well, that's the problem, Your Honor. It was
I don't have that.
inadvertently left out of the electronic version,
Okay.
which has caused the issue here. But you did have it in your paper binder.
Yeah, well, I did. That's my fault. So
Oh, and my colleague, Mr. Anderson, just sent it to Ms. Rosa and your law clerk.
and the defendants have it as well.
The defendants, we sent it to them last night when we saw that had not been
They
included.
will forward that to me. All right, and I'll be able to take a look.
Okay,
Why don't you go on with your questioning? We'll get back to whether it gets admitted as an exhibit.
thank you, Your Honor. All right, we began all of this, Mr. Venozzi, with asking you whether you had done any other work to identify the townway referenced in the 1763 layout, and you referred me to these documents. Could you please describe how these documents assisted you in identifying the townway referenced in the 1763 layout?
Yes. These documents refer to sections of ways in the town that were assigned to different highway surveyors and those assignments were for maintenance, essentially. The highway surveyors were like today's DPW. That's what the term meant back then. So the highway surveyors were then responsible for different sections, different surveyors were appointed to be responsible for different sections of road, and the descriptions that were used in these assignments describe the ways. And what I had excerpted out, there's every way in the town, the ways in the town were all given to different highway surveyors throughout the entire town. So what I excerpted and are shown in these excerpts are the 1 or 2 lines generally for each of the years that pertains to Estabrook Road, and what has been left off have been all the other roads in town that were not germane.
Objection.
Your objection?
again, if the witness is testifying from these documents, and I'm looking quickly at the index because we haven't had a chance to review it, I am not seeing references to Estabrook Road, which he just testified to. If he's testifying beyond the content of the document, no foundation has been laid.
Well, I assume that Ms. Allison is going to get into the specifics of the documents, and you're going to be cross-examining about the specifics of the documents. So the objection is overruled.
Yeah, Mr. Venozzi, I did just hear your reference to Estabrook Road. At the time of these surveyor records, 1754 through 1829, was this way that you identified referred to as Estabrook Road?
No, it was not. My understanding that the name Estabrook Road was given to it later than that.
Objection sustained. Mr. Venazzi, I'm going to caution you to just answer the question that was asked, okay?
So Mr. Venozzi, why don't you tell me, without reference to the current name of this road, what did you find in these documents, in the language in these documents, that assisted you in identifying the townway referenced in the 1763 layout?
Your Honor,
Objection, Mr. Cooper.
just given the number of documents we have in front of us, if we could just have a identifying feature, whether the exhibit number or the Bates number, so we can follow along.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Well, we'll take one example. Let's go to the exhibit subpart 9, which is the record from 1762.
Yes.
What did you read in that document that helped you to identify the townway described in the 1763 layout?
In that document in 1762, it indicates that one of the sections that was assigned was from said way by Benjamin Clark's as far as the way is laid out. And then for indexing, I put to Captain James Barrett, so we knew which one it was. So Captain James Barrett was assigned from said way by Benjamin Clark as far as the way is laid out.
Okay, so you're referring to the paragraph that begins with "to Captain James Barrett," because that was the person, the surveyor to whom it was assigned. And then a part of that paragraph.
Well, I object. Can we have testimony from the witness, please?
I'm
Your
just
Honor?
clarifying his testimony, Mr.
I-
Cooper.
Objection.
Overruled.
You made a reference to Captain James Barrett, Mr. Venozzi. Are you? And I see a reference to Captain James Barrett. I'm trying to help the court see how you follow, how you read this document. The reference to Captain James Barrett in the sort of second full paragraph about midway down the page.
Wait, which one are we on? I'm sorry, Ms. Allison.
This is subpart 9,
L9,
L9.
1762.
That's right.
Okay, and where are we?
So Mr. Venozzi was pointing us to the paragraph that begins "to Captain James Barrett,"
Yep.
about halfway down the page. And so tell us again, Mr. Venozzi, who Mr. Captain James Barrett, why he's referenced in this document.
The format that these documents take is a statement of a name to someone, and then they describe segments of ways that are assigned to that individual. That's the format of all of these records.
Okay.
So the paragraph that I was excerpting from was that began "to Captain James Barrett" in this particular case, and excerpted the words that pertain to where I believe it refers to what is the way by Benjamin Clark's, which is currently known as Estabrook Road.
Okay. So, and you're referring to about halfway down that paragraph. the
Yes.
reference to said way by Benjamin Clark's as far as the way is laid out.
Just trying to, yes, and that, keep in mind that Captain Barrett was not just given one piece.
I object, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
So,
May I also, if I may, Your Honor, lodge an objection to this witness, who's a professional land surveyor, testifying to how colonial highway surveyors received their assignments.
Objection is overruled. He's made a study of these documents, and I will allow him to testify as to what's in them and what he's learned from them.
So Mr. Venozzi, what is the significance of this reference to the way by Benjamin Clark's to the opinion that you're rendering?
I would mention that all the records beginning with number 3, L3, all the way through L59, all refer to an assignment of a way that goes by Benjamin Clark's or by Benjamin Clark's house. And I've identified Benjamin Clark's house as number 14 on the chalk that I had provided.
Right. So
So
let me
that
ask.
puts us in that vicinity.
So let me ask you before you continue, what work did you do to identify the location of Benjamin Clark's house?
The house is there today. One of, aside from the current references in his cultural resources with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that refer to it, I was able to take, there's a plan that is from 1754 that shows Benjamin Clark's house symbol, and it says Benjamin Clark, and I was able to overlay that at scale generally on the current maps, and the location from 1754 is at or near the location of where it is today.
Okay, so Mr. Venozzi, I'd ask you to look at Agreed Exhibit 24.
Yes, I have that in front of me.
Okay, is this the 1754 plan that you just testified about?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And it was, and I believe you just said you identified the location of Benjamin Clark's on this plan.
That's correct.
Could you just describe for us where you see that on the plan?
Yes, the plan that I have is color, and there's annotations that were added after 1754 where it actually says Estabrook Road, which is placed later, and near as you go along the road away from the river, from the word Estabrook, there's a house shown on the west side. There's a little house symbol, and the word BENJA Clark is notated on the plan. So it would be on the westerly side of that way or road, and it says Benjamin Clark.
Okay, thank you. So we were talking about Exhibit 1760. I'm sorry, the annual assignment from 1762, which is Exhibit now 115-9. For efficiency's sake, I'd rather not take you through each of these, but could you describe for us whether there are any particular years included in this exhibit that you relied on in identifying the location of the town way referenced in the 1763 layout?
Yes, these can be grouped into some categories thematically. And I would point to the records from 1758, which is 5, through 1763, which is 10. And each of those carries reference, as I mentioned before, reference Benjamin Clark's house, and they extend, excuse me, 1757, not 58. So it's 4 through 10. They reference Benjamin Clark's house, and as far as the way is laid out. And the words laid out is described from 1757 through 1763.
Okay. So that's what you described, I think, is your first grouping.
Yes.
Thematically. Okay. Is there another grouping thematically that you relied on in identifying the town way referenced in the 1763 layout?
Yes, the next group that I would identify thematically would be from 1764 through 1767. So there's 4 years, 64, 5, 6, and 7.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1764, it again goes by Benjamin Clark's. In 1764, it says, so by Harris, to the new way lately laid out. And then the new way, as far as the way goes, through Captain Jonathan Buttrick's pasture northward. So from 1763 to 1764, when is the same time frame that the 1763 county layout came to be, they revised the assignment to continue on past Benjamin Clark's house onto the new layout. And they carry that same language in passing calls, referring to the new way for about 4 years, 1764, 1765, 66, and 67. And then in 1760.
Before we move on, I just have a couple of questions about that. So based on your reading of these documents, starting in 1764, as you just described, do you have an opinion of the road, on the as it is on the ground that these records are describing, that these records are assigning?
They, by the call.
Yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your opinion based on the description in these assignments of the way that's being assigned, the location of the way that's being assigned from 1764 through 1767?
All right, there's an objection. Mr. Cooper?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the objection is based on lack of foundation and invoking the court's gatekeeping function under the Lanigan standard. These are leaps of dots that just cannot be connected by virtue of the documents that have been offered to you. If I understand the witness's testimony correctly, he started out by saying that he had identified via a 1734 layout the town way that this purportedly refers to, and then ultimately, having given that opinion, had to withdraw it, concluding based upon evidence supplied by the defendants that it was Monument Street. These documents are neither here nor there in terms of how to get from the southern terminus of the 1793 layout.
63 layout.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm inverting my
You guys
six.
are really trying to confuse me more than.
As soon as we got to L1 through 59, I was done. I won't repeat it, Your Honor, but the court does have a gatekeeping function here, and I do understand Judge Sullivan's admonition about taking things to Benny, but this literally requires a leap of faith that is not permitted via
Well,
expert testimony.
Mr. Cooper, I don't know. There are references in these documents to this road, wherever it is, running by Benjamin Clark's house. We all agree as to where Benjamin Clark's house was and is, right?
Your Honor, we walked through the woods, and at the Four Rod Way, as Your Honor saw, there are multiple alternatives as to which way the Estabrook Trail would keep going. No one is disputing the words on the page. The issue here is whether that can somehow be linked up with the southern terminus of a layout from 1763 that is, fully several hundred yards distant. And that is a bridge too far for expert testimony from a surveyor, Your Honor.
I mean, I just wrote down what Mr. Venazzi quoted from this last 4 years of documents, and it was something like, by Benjamin Clark's, so by Harris, to the new way lately laid out, and then something like through Captain John Buttrick's pasture northward. One could easily conclude that that meant from Clark's house northward to the beginning of the 1763 layout. Or it might be something else, but it's certainly not so far afield that I think I shouldn't admit it or admit his opinion as to what that might mean. I'm going to overrule the objection. And you have your case that it really means 4 Rod Road or 2 Rod Road or some other road, but I think it's it's enough to get to the jury, so to speak. So I'm going to overrule the objection.
All right, Mr. Venozzi, before we move on, I'm going to show you the chalk that you referenced earlier today. I had asked you, and I'm trying to take these assignments in pieces. I know there are later ones that we'll look at as well, but again, to try to, so that it can be easier to follow. I'm asking you about that description, which is, largely the same as you testified from the from the assignments in 1764 through 1767. And I asked whether you had an opinion based on these records about where that road is located in relation to the disputed portion of Estabrook Road today. And so here's the chalk. Can you answer that question with reference to this chalk?
You would just have a standing objection to this, Your Honor.
Noted.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the 1764, which would be L11 or 11511. And that describes the way by Benjamin Clark's house, which would be number 14 on the chalk.
Mm-hmm.
And so by Harris, and had not pointed that out before, but on the chalk, I have indicated number 13, the crosshatched area is noted as Harris Farm crosshatched.
And we'll come back to that, Mr. Venozzi,
Right.
but sort of sticking with the records for the moment.
And then the description to the new way lately laid out. And we had talked at length about that being at the intersection of lot my opinion that it's at the intersection of lot 1439 and Estabrook Road or further south.
Okay. Now, so Mr. Venozzi, did you rely in any way on the surveyor's records subsequent to 1767, starting with 1768, which is subpart 15?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what did you, and how did those records assist you in rendering your opinion?
Those records continue to carry the same language of by Benjamin Clark's house. What changed in 1767 is they dropped the tie to the new laid out way because I'm assuming because it wasn't new anymore. It had been 4 years.
I object and move to strike, Your Honor.
Sustained. Mr. Venazzi, please refrain from stating your assumptions, just testify as to what the question was, okay?
They removed the reference to the new layout. In 1768, it still carried the reference by the side of Buttrick's pasture, which I had identified on the chalk at lot 1528 earlier. And the descriptions evolve, but they still carry. There's a reference to Ephraim Buttrick's pasture in 1769. Ephraim was a son of Jonathan Buttrick and who had passed away, and they continue to carry references, always Benjamin Clark's house on the south and various other calls that are northerly through up Estabrook Road. They even refer to continuing starting in about 1770 to reference continuing all the way to the Billerica line. And then we see, because Carlisle to Billerica at that point in time was part of Concord, and we see in 1780 the descriptions for the surveyor's assignments become greatly simplified. In 1780, it's the way by Benjamin Clark's to the Carlisle line, and 1780 is when Carlisle became a separate either town or district. And those simplified descriptions of Benjamin Clark's to Carlisle line, Benjamin Clark to Carlisle line, that simplified description carries all the way through the descriptions to 1829.
Okay. So Mr. Venozzi, that summary that you just provided for us covered the years, as I heard it, 1768 through 1829, which is subparts 15 through 59. Was that, did I hear that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. With respect to each of the assignments in each of those years, do you have an opinion on the road that is being described in these assignments to the surveyors for those years?
Hold on, there's an objection, Ms. Goodhart.
Oh, Your Honor.
I think we have a standing objection, Your Honor, so we're relying on that.
And it's a yes or no question. I hadn't objected yet.
Oh,
I'll restate my question, Mr. Venozzi. With respect to the years 1768 to 1829 that you just described, do you have an opinion with respect to the location of the road described in those assignments?
Yes, from
Yes.
Answer.
Please. And what is your opinion with respect to the location of the road described in those assignments?
Standing objection.
So noted.
From the years again, I'm sorry, 1768 to
To 1829.
they extend from Benjamin Clark's house to all of those together to at least the existing Carlisle town line up Estabrook Road.
So the disputed portion of Estabrook Road.
Yes,
You say, and just for clarification purposes, why do you say at least?
I had broken 1768 to 1769 down because as a separate group, because Carlisle did not exist, and some of the later ones in that grouping extend all the way to the Billerica line, which is northerly of the Carlisle town line. In 1780, they consolidated and simplified them. And of course, the assignment ended in Concord, so it ended at the Carlisle town line.
Okay, so we've heard your opinion now, Mr. Venozzi, with respect to the road described in each of these surveyor assignments. What is your degree of certainty with respect to that opinion?
A very high degree of certainty.
Can you if you're done with that chalk, can you take it down?
Oh, yes, I apologize, Your Honor. We might come back to it, but we're done for the moment. So returning briefly, shifting briefly to the 1763 layout again, Mr. Venozzi, in the course of your work on this case, did you determine whether there was ever any other action taken by the county with respect to that 1763 layout?
Yes, I did.
And what other action did the county take based on your
Well,
research with respect to that layout?
Objection, lack of foundation.
Well, I just think your objections are premature. I don't even know what she's talking about yet. So
That's
That's
the
well, I'm
point
going to
here.
hear what he says, and then you can object when he doesn't have a foundation to give an opinion on it. But I don't even know what's being objected to. Go ahead. It's overruled.
So, Mr. Venozzi, in the course of your research, what did you learn about any further action taken with respect to the 1763 layout?
There was a discontinuance that I had located for the originally petitioned, and I talked about how they diverged. There was a discontinuance, a petition to the county court for a discontinuance of that, the original part, and confirming that the alternate way, as we've called it, was what they intended.
Okay, so I'd like to show you agreed exhibit 20. Are you there, Mr. Venozzi?
I am not.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, didn't mean to rush you.
Okay, I have located that.
Okay. Is this the document to which you were just testifying about?
Yes, it is the document and a transcription of that document that I had prepared.
Okay. And could you just point us to the language in this document that provided you with the information that you just
Well,
described?
this is agreed exhibit 20.
Agreed exhibit 20, yes.
I have the document, but I don't have the transcription. But you can go on though. I just want to let you know I don't have it.
Your Honor, is the transcription behind the document?
No, it's not.
Oh, I think there was initially a dispute about the transcription, Your Honor, which we resolved yesterday, I believe. And Mr. Anderson sent an email last night or this morning? Last night with the transcription after we resolved our dispute. So,
Okay,
and a
well,
hard copy this morning.
it'll catch up to me. Okay.
It'll catch up to you, yes. So So Mr. Venozzi, I was asking you, what language in this document were you just referring to?
In the transcription, there's a preamble, and then there's a sentence that begins, the petitioner, and the petitioner was Jonas Hayward in behalf of the town of Concord. And it says, the petitioners here therefore humbly pray that this court would discontinue the way leading across the land of said buttrick and order confirmation of the road according to the description herewith exhibited.
Okay. And the description herewith exhibited that follows, what do you understand that to be?
It follows where they were the same and then where they diverge at the,
You say they, what are you referring to?
Sorry, let me start over. The description begins the same as the 1763 layout, continuing to the point where the two ways diverged at the gap in Ephraim Minot's fence. And this description describes the alternate way that then proceeds along Barrett's fence and down, as I've discussed earlier.
I see. That's the second paragraph that you're referring to.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what was, based on your reading of this document, what was your what's your professional understanding of the effect of this document?
I object, Your Honor.
Overruled.
This document to me indicates that they had originally returned both forks in the way, the originally petitioned and the alternate way, and this court order, this layout, it's a layout even though it's a discontinuance, discontinued the originally petitioned way so that only the alternate way would remain.
And when you're referring to the originally petitioned and the alternate way, you're referring to just to clarify, the two ways in that 1763 layout.
Yes, the originally petitioned one is discontinued by this document.
Understood. Okay. Now in the second paragraph, I'm running over to the third page. I think you testified that repeats the layout of the alternate way.
Yes, there's
Okay.
some, yes,
Okay.
essentially.
So the final sentence there after the NB states that this description is reported on condition that the petitioners give the land for the road through their own land. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Based on the research, the work that you've done in this case, did you reach any opinion about whether the petitioners, or do you have any opinion about whether the petitioners gave their land for the road?
Objection.
There's an objection. Mr. Cooper, Ms. Goodhart.
Well, the question is whether the petitioners gave their land. We don't have a foundation of who the petitioners are and whether he's reached an opinion on that for starters.
Sustained.
So, Mr. Venozzi, I will take this the other way around then. Do you, based on this document, do you have any understanding of who the petitioners for the 1763 layout and this confirmed layout were?
The 1763 layout,
Objection, Your Honor. I would ask that be answered yes or no.
I'm going to let him answer the question, Mr. Cooper. Overruled.
can you restate the question, please?
Do you have an opinion about who the petitioners were?
Yes.
Okay, and what is your opinion?
My opinion is that in the 1763 layout, it indicates Zacchaeus Green and others. And that's the knowledge that I have of the petitioners in the 1763 layout.
So you're not aware of the identity based on research you've done of any of the other petitioners for the road described in the 1763 layout?
That is correct.
Do you have any opinion based on the work you've done of whether any party gave their land for the road described in the 1763 layout?
What? Yes.
Okay, and what is your opinion with respect to that?
Objection, Mr. Cooper.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. And I understand I'm pressing on the court's patience, but this is important. There's a lack of foundation here. He's about to be asked about whether there was a conveyance by any of the unnamed petitioners who we don't know who they are, other than Mr. Green, having transferred their property to the town pursuant to the condition in the layout. This witness has just testified he doesn't know who they
I
are.
understand your objection, Mr. Cooper. Ms. Allison, you're gonna have to lay more of a foundation before I'll let that opinion in.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not asking him, Your Honor, about whether he knows of any particular conveyance of land. My question for him was whether, based on what he has, based on the research, the work that he has done, whether he reached any conclusion about.
Well, he said he reached the conclusion, and I can't imagine right now what the basis for that conclusion would be. So I need you to lay a foundation for how he got there before I'm going to let him give his opinion.
Okay. Mr. Venozzi, in the course of your research, did you attempt to find any information regarding whether land was conveyed for the road?
Yes.
Okay. Did you find any information about whether land was conveyed for the road?
I did not find any specific conveyances for land in the road.
Okay. Did you find, in the course of your research, did you find any information about whether damages were sought by any landowners in connection with the laying out of the road?
Yes.
And what information did you discover?
I remember seeing some records where individuals had put in articles to town meeting asking for damages.
Did you identify any documents that informed your opinion as to whether any parties gave land for the layout of the road?
Yes.
And what documents did you find that informed that opinion?
I would go back to the 1764 assignment to the highway surveyors.
Okay, right? That was exhibit 115 or one of the
115. Let me get the right. 115-11.
That's the 1764
highway assignment by the selectmen to the highway surveyors, yes.
Okay. And what about that document informed your opinion?
This is the first year after the 1763 layout. And the fact that the town was assigning this segment to a highway surveyor to maintain is indicative of the fact that
I object, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Cooper, please don't interrupt this question. If you want to move to strike afterwards, we'll talk about it. I want to hear the whole answer, okay?
The 1764, I'm beginning again. The 1764 is the first assignment by the selectmen to the highway surveyors of after the 1763 layout, and they assigned past Benjamin Clark's class onto the new way as laid out. They assigned that to a highway surveyor beginning in that year. So beginning that year.
Okay.
All right, now, Mr. Cooper, your objection or motion to strike?
I object and move to strike, Your Honor.
Okay, I understand your objection to be to Mr. Venazzi's conclusion that the fact of assignment to the highway surveyors is evidence that he's accepting of the dedication of that part of the way. Is that right?
The original question, Your Honor, was what evidence of land grants, and I'm quoting, land grants this witness had observed.
That's not the question he
That
was
wasn't
responding
exactly
to.
the question asked. Let me tell you what I understood. I understand what both sides are getting to. Both sides are directing, well, Ms. Allison is directing her questions to whether there's evidence of the owners of the land along the disputed way having given the land in some fashion to the town, whether by conveyance or otherwise. And the only evidence I'm hearing so far is the town is suggesting that the assignment to the highway surveyors to maintain what they say is that part of the road, that road, starting in 1764, is evidence of that part of the way having been given by these owners. You say that's not enough. They say it's enough. I understand what both sides are getting to. So I'm going to allow the answer to stand. Your objection, I understand, but I think it goes to the weight of the evidence.
May I be heard, Your Honor? I just would like to ask then that we have precision in the questioning, because I think what is happening is we're conflating layout, dedication, land grant, and acceptance. And it's fine for him to testify as Your Honor directs. But if the question is asking a different question, we must object. And I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, I get it, and that's a good suggestion. But I understand some of the evidence that comes in might be suggestive of one or the other of the elements required to prove a public way. I don't take Mr. Venazzi's testimony as something really suggestive to me on the ultimate legal issue. He can testify as to the facts he's entitled to opine as to. But the decision of whether any of those facts, if I accept them, are evidence of dedication as opposed to an official layout, that's something we'll get to at the end of the case. Okay. All right. Ms. Allison, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I feel like my questions have either been too broad or too narrow. I think the question I last asked Mr. Venazzi, to which he responded, was whether there were any documents that he reviewed in the course of his research that informed, his opinion as to whether any party had given land for the way.
Right, and the answer was these
And
assignments.
he identified these assignments.
Okay.
I'd like to say, I asked Mr. Venazzi whether there was any other records that he identified that informed his opinion as to whether any party had given land for the way.
Yes.
And what other documents informed your opinion?
In the area of Jonathan Buttrick's pasture, I need to put the documents in front of me, but Jonathan Buttrick's will from 1767 informed my decisions, my opinions.
I believe, let me just turn to. Please turn to. You'll have to tell us, Mr. Venozzi, please look at title exhibit 95.
Yes. Let me get that. No, I'm looking for, that's a subsequent deed. I'm looking for the will of Jonathan Buttrick. Might be in his probate. Let me see if.
Let's turn to 88.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So, okay. So what's the significance of that document to you?
This document is Jonathan Buttrick's will. Jonathan Buttrick, we may remember, was at the gap in the fence where the roads diverged. And Jonathan Buttrick was the petitioner in the town for the town meeting article on December 12th. In his will, he leaves a parcel of land, and I'm going to try to find which item in the will it is. Item 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the fifth. It's the fifth paragraph, the last paragraph of the first page of the will, the very last line. And this is leaving a parcel to his son Willard. And on the very last line of the will, it says also 24 acres of woodland bounded northerly, where we now go to the second page of the will. And that line, that the description continues on the second page I was northerly, on Thomas Hubbard's land, easterly on John Flint's land, and on a county road. That description goes on to describe the parcel which we know as lot 1528 on the current assessor's maps and on my
What's
chalk.
that parcel number?
1528.
Okay. So Mr. Venozzi, does that cover any of the documents that you relied on in reaching any opinion about whether any land was given for the way?
I would also the document that you had started with.
95, title exhibit 95.
Yes,
Okay,
that exhibit 95 is a deed from Willard Buttrick to an Abel Prescott in 1768. So he had inherited that land from his father, Jonathan. He then deeded it to Willard Buttrick in 1768, shortly thereafter. And in that description, it's the same 24-acre parcel and bounded as follows. I'm looking at the third line of the transcription.
mhm,
Bounded easterly on road lately laid out by the county and on land belonging to John Flint, which is northerly of that Ephraim Minot gap. So that's lot 1528 as well, and references the county road.
okay. All right, and Mr. Venozzi, were there any other documents on which you relied to reach any conclusion about whether land was given for the way?
It's what I can recall now.
Okay. I'm going to move to a different topic, Your Honor. Earlier, you pointed to your cross-hatching for the Harris farm on your chalk, and I said we would get back to that, right? That's where we're gonna go now. Did you do any work, or I should say, I can see your chalk. What work did you do to identify the location of the Harris land as noted on your chalk?
I had, going back from the current deeds, at some point I became aware or ran across a deed from 1730 that describes a conveyance from, appears to be a group of proprietors of the 20 score to Jonathan Harris.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to turn to title exhibit 72, Mr. Venozzi.
Yes, I have that in front of me now.
All right, and is this the document that you just referenced?
That is correct.
Okay. And how did this document inform your opinion of the bounds of the Harris land identified on your chalk?
This document includes a description of the parcel being conveyed, and it's a vague description, but it does carry, and I'll read the pertinent portions here. And I'm going to start. It's in the first paragraph of the description, transcription. And I'm going to start on the line 6 up from the bottom. It begins with the word right. And I'm going to start with the description, which said is bounded. Okay, so this is the start of the description of the parcel. Westerly by a 2-rod way leading to John Bateman's lot called Joseph's lot.
Can I pause you there, Mr. Venozzi? Would it help to look at your chalk while you just
That may be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna just enlarge the area that you've crosshatched as the Harris land, all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, based on your legend, we're looking at the cross hatching on number 13, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, please continue.
Okay. So the parcel is described as westerly by a 2-rod way leading to John Bateman's lot and called Joseph's lot. Northerly, partly by Samuel Jones and Joseph's Flag's land. Easterly by land of John Hunt, and southerly by the 4-rod way, there being a 2-rod way through the premises leading toward Ephraim Brown's lot and Thomas Brown's lot, where it is now occupied.
Okay, and describe for us how you correlated that description with what you've cross-hatched as the Harris land.
I've indicated on the plan at item number 12 in the legend, the 4-rod road. So that's the southerly, the 4-rod road is the southerly boundary referred to. The easterly boundary is John Hunt, and John Hunt, the Hunt land, which was hundreds and hundreds of acres, is to the east of the crosshatched area. The line that I show is kind of the westerly boundary, is the 2-rod row, I think is called Mount Road or Mount Way today. And if we look, if you could slide the image down a little bit, I want to point out where Joseph's Meadow is, or is it Joseph's lot? Okay, that's good. If we look on the map, I reference Hugh Cargill Road.
Yes.
If we look where the H in the first H in Hugh is, if we move southwesterly, we see a larger wetland area that's runs southwest to northeast to the northwest of Hugh Cargill Road, and it's the nearest one to Hugh Cargill Road south of the word Hugh, to the south or to the northwest of the road. That, my research has indicated, is Joseph's lot or Joseph's Meadow. I had indicated that, so that the way that I refer to as the westerly boundary, let's go back to the crosshatched area, that there's a way there, Mount Road, and it continues, and that would be a way that would take you to Joseph's Meadow. And that gives us, it shows us sort of a east and west and south dimension. And we see that in the description that I read, that there is a 2-rod way that through the premises where it is now occupied. So that would indicate to me that in 1730, there was a physical way of some sort, and they were what we would call reserving today, reserving or laying out or showing a layout of a 2-rod width over that existing way in 1730. And I believe that to be Estabrook Road.
I would,
What is now Estabrook
Your
Road?
Honor, I
It is
would
now
object
Estabrook.
Hold on, there's an objection.
I'm sorry.
and move to strike for lack of foundation the last 3 sentences of that answer.
Well, that really was the import of his entire testimony, to his conclusion that it was Estabrook Road. I'm going to overrule the objection. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to allow I'm going to strike it. I'm going to allow that objection and strike it because the question was about whether the location of Harris's land, and the answer to that in that respect went beyond the question. Okay, so the motion is allowed.
So Mr. Venozzi, with respect to the description in the deed, were you able to identify just, on your chalk here, the location of that 2-rod way that's described in the deed?
Yes.
Okay. And where is the location of that 2-rod way with reference to your chalk? Where is the location of the 2-rod way that's described in the deed?
Hold on. You're going to have to describe how he came to, you're going to have to lay a better foundation.
Okay. Well, Mr. Venozzi, I just heard you just testified with respect to the bounds that are described in this deed, correct? And
Yes.
based on those northerly, southerly, westerly, and easterly bounds, you placed the location of this Harris land where we see it cross-hatched here on the chalk, correct?
Yes.
What did you do, if anything, in order to place the location of the 2-rod way that's referenced in this deed?
Objection, Your Honor. There are two 2-rod ways mentioned. Could we have more specificity as to which is being asked about?
I'm referring to the 2-rod that Mr. Venozzi did, the 2-rod way through the premises leading towards Ephraim Brown's lot. I'm referring to that 2-rod way.
Yes. The method that I used to determine what we know from the description is that the Harris farm straddles a way, the second way that's described, the one that goes through it. And the way that the information that I found to determine where that way was or located was I researched the deeds in and out of Jonathan Harris to see, and I found 2 deeds out of Jonathan Harris, and those 2 deeds are on the easterly side of, maybe we should look at those deeds.
Yes, so I'm going to refer you to title exhibits. It's 91 and 110 that I believe you're referring to, but please take a look and confirm that.
Yes, I'm looking at 91 now, and the other one was?
110.
Ms. Allison, if you're not using it right this minute, could you take that chalk down, please?
Yes.
The exhibit 91, and the other one you said is the 110. No, it's not 110. I'm looking for a deed from I'm looking for Mary Harris to Benjamin Clark.
So 91 is Mary Harris to Benjamin Clark.
Yes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, that is correct. I'm sorry. Yes, it is. It's Mary Harris to Jonathan Clark. Yes, they are the correct 2 deeds. I'm
Okay, so
sorry.
just to be clear on the record, you're looking at title exhibit 91, which is a deed from Mary Harris to Benjamin Clark. entitled Exhibit 110, which is a deed from Mary Harris to Jonathan Harris. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, we're looking at the same thing.
yes.
All right, so,
Um,
I'm sorry, continue. You were discussing those two deeds. I wanted to identify them for you.
Just a moment. Yeah, I just was looking. Give me a moment here. I'm concerned about the transcriptions.
Okay.
Has to do, I'm looking at the dates specifically. Yes. It was my recollection that the deed from Mary Harris to Benjamin Clark is before the deed from Mary Harris to Jonathan Clark, and the dates are not correct in the transcriptions.
Okay, so
So,
Your Honor,
Yeah,
if I may be heard, we have a transcription for Exhibit 110. We do not have a transcription for Exhibit 91. So if the witness is referring to something that we haven't seen, we'd like to have that.
well, yeah, I've got both transcriptions. So Ms. Allison, you have to. These are agreed exhibits, right?
They are.
yeah, so I don't know what happened there.
Okay, so. the
Perhaps it was a
exhibit-
copying error. I'm just letting you know, we do not have the transcription that the witness is
That's for all-
referring to.
For all three of you? Do you have separate volumes?
Yes,
of
that's
these?
correct. It's,
I mean, you knew they were doing that. You were doing that.
have a transcription for that.
I can't hear orders.
I'm
We
sorry.
do not have a transcription for Exhibit 91. None of us do.
None of you do.
So I'm trying to figure out what happened here. Just give me a moment.
Sure.
You know what? We'll take 5 minutes and then we're gonna go till 4.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
We're missing some others as well, but we can deal with them as we get to them.
Oh,